Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Advocacy. Tonight, I'm flying solo. We had one of my co-hosts got sick at the last minute, so we're hoping all is well with them. But it's just me and Ali. I just want to welcome her to the show, and of course, we're going to talk about Ali and her, going forward with well, I'll let her tell. Don't let me tell her story. Ali, come on, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi guys. My name is Ailee Dixon, and I currently am Miss Frostburg Elks Derby Days through the Miss America organization, and I am the first blind contestant that uses a white tipped cane in Miss America history.
Okay, okay. So when you say that you're the first, is that something you set out to do to prove a point, or is that just something that just happened?
The answer kind of be yes to both of those.
Okay.
Pageantry is something I've always been kind of curious about, but due to being blind, and I only went blind 4 years ago, but I didn't think I could because I didn't see myself represented. And over the last year and a half, I've decided that advocacy is really uh, is what I want to do for work is spread awareness for the blind and visually impaired and go into corporate spaces and organizations of how to make things more inclusive for the blind and visually impaired. And I was like, well, pageantry would be a great way to be able to get connections. And then I started thinking, well, why can't I do it? How can I compete that can still does not give me advantage over the other contestants competing because I didn't want there to be seen as I somehow had this unfair advantage, which to me, they have eyes. I think we know who has the unfair advantage.
Wow.
I went into it more to at this point to prove to myself that I could, right? Because I know there'd be 20,000 people to tell me why I couldn't. I wanted to prove to me why I could.
I like your drive. I do. Now, let's start from the beginning. I know you started out by saying that, you lost your sight some time ago. Tell us about that.
Um, I always make the joke that I didn't see blindness coming. So I didn't know I'd become blind. It just kind of happened.
Okay.
I was born with a genetic disease called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I my skull was dislocating several times a day, causing me to go unconscious every time it pressed onto my arteries. So I had to get fused to occiput the C2. Unfortunately, that surgery cut off pathways for cerebral spinal fluid the flow, and I got hydrocephalus. I got too much fluid in my brain for too long, and it took my vision. I now have a shunt to help drain it, but I now am blind, and I have occasional seizures, which I call my mini dance parties. Uh, like I said, if you don't laugh, you cry.
Okay, that's right.
Uh, to try to combat that. So I was only 20 years old when I went blind, and I had no warning or heads up that that was even a side effect that could come out of surgery, and it did.
Okay. So my daughter, and we've had several people on here that have hydrocephalus that has a shunt. My daughter has a mild case of hydrocephalus. She just has never had a shunt. Now the genetic disorder that you have, were you born with it?
Yes, I was
Okay.
born with, and there's a lot of different types of
Yes.
Ehlers-Danlos. I have the vascular type, which is basically like the more deadly form of the disorder.
So, and I the whole purpose of us having advocacy is
Mhm.
for us to educate people. So please forgive my ignorance, but with all of my daughter has a genetic disorder. So with
Mhm.
all of the genetic disorders, as we know, there can be thousands. For people think, that they're just one or two. Again, Down syndrome is one of the more common ones, but we do have it could be thousands of genetic disorders.
Right.
With this one, this is something you said that was targeting because of your skull being moved. is that something that happened when you were in the womb, or is that something that happened outside the womb?
That happened outside the womb because people who have Ehlers-Danlos, we don't syndrome, we don't have collagen, which is like the glue to your joints. So basically, and people don't think of your spine as individual joints. And
Mm.
unfortunately, that's even where with me getting my skull fused, they say once you start fusing above, then it's only a matter of time till the rest of the spine will need fused. But knock on wood somewhere. Aha, found it. That hasn't happened for 4 years. Hoping that continues that way.
I love it. I mean, and this is so interesting. And so I want to give my viewers a great understanding of, the genetic disorder. And when you're saying that it was being fused, you all are missing the collagen. That's almost like a jelly thing. If I would say it correctly, just in layman's terms, it's like a gel that glues everything together,
Yep,
basically.
exactly.
Wow, that is so interesting. It's so many different types of genetic disorders
There
that
are.
it's just amazing to me. Is there a specific um I know my daughter has a rare genetic condition and it affects her number 6 chromosome. Which chromosome does it affect with you?
I know the exact. You know what? That is a lovely thing. I know the exact number that mine's affected because
Wow.
I know it's the what is it? The FBN2 gene mutation, but what that is on the chromosome, I don't know. I just know
Okay.
the
Okay.
mutation.
Because and again I believe, and I'm not a genetics doctor, but I believe we have 13 from our mother and 13 from our father, so we have a total of 26. If I'm being correct, please, if I'm not saying it correctly, please forgive me, but I think we have 13 from our mother, 13 from our father. If we have 14, that's a genetic disorder. If we have 13, I mean, if we have 15 from one person, that's a genetic disorder. And this is why it's so many, because there are some times when there's 12 on one side and 13 on one side. Anytime that there's some type of, they're not a perfect 13, if it's 13 and a half, there is going to be somewhat of a genetic disorder. That's what I was told. So I'm glad that you're breaking this down for us. So that was great. So how, tell us of that transition, when you had, when, like you say, you were 20, you were in the prime of your years. Tell us, how did you get through that process?
Well, the thing is even far before I became blind, I
Mhm.
was disabled at the age of 12. I got Guillain-Barré syndrome from a flu vaccine. And from that, Guillain-Barré syndrome is an autoimmune disease that attacks your nerves and destroys them. And in 80% of cases, it's fatal. So I was on a ventilator for quite a while. I didn't start walking again until I was 18. So from 12 to 18, I was paralyzed and wheelchair bound, and then I was finally able to walk again. But when I was, we noticed that I started fainting all the time. And
Mm.
they were just like, oh, she has Ehlers-Danlos, it's probably POTS. And well, no, it turns out my skull was dislocated. So it was the fusing of that. So I always say that far before I even became disabled, and with growing up in Frederick, my parents taught us a sign language starting at the age of 4, because
Wow.
it's where the Maryland School of the Deaf is. That I've been sensitive to disability even far before I was in that community myself.
Mhm.
Um, so it's given me. I always said that since going blind, I have a lot more empathy towards others because I
Mm.
legitimately cannot judge a book by its cover.
I love it.
I literally do not care. Like people say that all the time, and it's like, yeah, but either good or bad, you're judging someone. You're thinking
Yeah,
about it. You're judging a
yeah.
book, and it's like, if I hadn't heard anything come out of their mouth yet, it's like I'm not judging you yet. I don't even know you're in the room, probably.
Wow. I love your outlook on life. I do. And I think sometimes, when we are dealt a hand that we didn't ask for and that we would not want,
Mhm.
it's easy to crawl up under the rock and cry. But I love the way that you've taken it, and you've taken, what is it, the bull by the horns, or the horn by the, whichever way it is. I think you
Yeah,
take the
exactly.
bull horns and you're just running with it. I love that. I love it. So tell us, is about your education. Tell us how you started moving into the educational realm, and then how that, just led to this and that.
So even when I started becoming blind, I was going to get my nursing degree. Now, unfortunately, once I became blind, I was told by my professors that even if I managed to get the degree, I would be seen as a liability,
Mm,
and I would never find work, which a lot of my friends nowadays say that's hogwash. But at the time,
mm,
I was already having difficulty affording a degree that I'm now being told I, probably won't find work in. So I chose to drop the degree, and kind of sit on it for a while, try to see if my vision gotten any better, and it actually got worse, and it's almost completely gone now.
mhm,
But now it's seeing the way that myself and my village of people had to basically get used to this new reality. So much we didn't know about blindness and visual impairments, that I didn't think I was alone in that, and most people want to do the right thing, they just don't know how. So that's
mhm,
why I was like, well, advocacy is a big thing that I could go into and talk about, um from not just firsthand experience, but also from others in the blind community. So I was like, this is something I can do something with. So I'm considering getting my degree in social work now.
I love it.
And going to do that for advocacy, and possibly even a patient advocate, as well.
And it's an encouragement, because I think, again, sometimes when things come our way, we just don't know how to handle it. And there are times that we need someone in front of us to show us that I'm a survivor. Look at what I've accomplished. And I think, if nothing else, people need that motivation. And you are definitely a motivation. I love it. I love your mindset.
I agree with that, but because one thing I say all the time, and I can hardly ever say it without crying, is I have a lot of disabled friends, and just to watch the number of them that once they become disabled, they just give up. They
Yeah.
go, okay, that's it. A lot of times, hopefully for that individual, it's later in life and they've had a
Mm.
lot of living, but I'm just like, well, no, that's not it for me. I still have things I want to do. Just now, how do I do it? My mom's dyslexic, so I grew up learning that there's more than one way to do something, but you can still get to the same goal.
I love
So,
it. I love it. So let's talk about how you became, you got into the pageant arenas. Tell us about that. Tell us how it started. And like you said at the beginning, you did it more so for several reasons, and I love your reasons. But
mhm.
tell us, how did you start, how it started happening, how that whole process unfolded.
Okay. So how I even got interested is for several years I was in and out of the hospital throughout like my tweens and teens. I spent more time in the hospital than out of the hospital, and I met many title holders, local, state, and national title holders through the Miss America organization when they would come to children's hospitals.
Hmm.
And I was able they really helped rechange the way I saw pageant girls. And I mean, like, there no cattiness. Like the one, like when I could eat again, because I couldn't eat for 2 years. It was awful, worst 2 years of my life. Um, she made me red velvet cupcakes and brought me Chick-fil-A. She came to visit me. I got my nails done with her. I recently went to her bridal shower. Like, it just fully helped reframe the way I think of it. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. And this year I was just like, I want to do advocacy. My one friend who did Miss Maryland a couple years ago, she was like, "Well, you know what's a great thing for advocacy? The Miss America organization." I was like, "I know, but I can't." And she's like, "Well, why can't you?" And I was telling her, and she's like, "Those don't sound like can'ts to me. They sound like it hasn't been
I
yet."
love it. Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, I agree with you. So I emailed the local director and I was like, hey, like, can I? I don't know if I can. Her response with me was, never had a blind contestant, but I'd be willing to give it a shot. And I'm just like, I was just reading that email because I'm so used to getting stopped from doing things once people
Mm,
find out
mm.
I'm blind, which is why I usually say I ask for forgiveness, not permission,
Ah,
is,
wow.
is my life
I like
motto.
that. I like
um
that.
but that I was like, she was like, of course. And actually most recently, at Miss Maryland at state, she we at visitation one of the nights, she comes out and she goes, the best thing I ever did was say yes to you, with like crying, like tears going down her face. She's like, I was so proud. I was like, hi. I was like, I love you too. But it's like people like that that just make, because I always thought of it as, the first disabled Miss America was Heather Whitestone, 1995. And the reason I say disabled in quotes is because she's deaf. And a lot of deaf people don't see themselves as disabled. It kind of
Mm,
depends on where you, a lot just see it as a culture. It depends on where you land with that.
okay.
But because of her is what made me go, where there could be a blind Miss America. It's just whether or not the world's ready for that. And I question a lot if they are or not, but guess what? Time will tell. I have a couple
Yeah.
more years in the system until I age
Okay.
out. So
Okay. Okay. Well, what does your banner say? We see a little bit of it, but I don't
it
see
says Miss
Miss
Frostburg
Frostberg.
Elks Derby Days. It's a long
Okay.
title.
Okay. So that's another pageant that you entered into?
No, I mean, it took me two locals to get a spot to go to Miss Maryland, because I
Mhm.
didn't get the first ever pageant I was in, and this was the second one. But the Derby Days, like, section, like, have you been to Frostburg?
I have. I went up there years ago to take my son to a college. Yeah, a college tour.
Yes, they have this thing every like 4th of July called Derby Days, and it's where kids race shoebox cars down Main Street. Um, and it's like a really big event there that the Elks help host. And
Okay.
I was able to go this past year and it was really fun. It was really
Okay.
fun.
Okay. Now, what are some of the activities? I know that there's, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know much about pageants. I
Uh-huh.
will say that when we were younger, I know that they had the Miss America pageant. I'm not even gonna lie. I think I saw it maybe a couple of times, but I'm not familiar with that process. So,
Mhm.
can you just break down that process a little for us to tell us? Because I know part of this is how it was different for you. Can you break it down so we can know what was a little different from you versus a candidate that could see, that did not have a disability?
The truth be told, I asked for as few accommodations as I could. I didn't have to ask for much. The main accommodation I needed is on stage. Obviously, you could tell somebody, like, okay, the side of stage, stop, and then there's going to be a middle point, and then there's going to be two diamond points. And I'm like, okay, great. That's great. Where is that? Because I'm like, I can't, I don't know. So we used traction tape. So that way when my
Mm,
cane went against it, it would hit the and I
okay,
know that, okay, I'm on the right track to get to my point and stop and stare. And basically the only vision I have left is light perception. So thankfully I could tell when the lights were actually shining in my eyes, because I was literally blinded by the light. I literally
mhm,
could not see.
okay,
So
okay.
that was easy. But the only other, like, real, like, big accommodation I had was For all of the events, because Miss Maryland week is an entire week. We were there Monday to Saturday.
Okay.
So for all of the events that we had, it's like I asked for one of the staff to guide me to do a sighted guide, because there's no way I'm doing that with a cane in a space I don't know.
Okay.
I would be in that building all day. I would never leave it. And, and I didn't want to take away from the other participants participating, me having to like hold on to their arm, which, yes, is probably not a big deal, but as a disabled person, last thing I want to hear is somebody not having a good time and it's my fault. So it's like,
Mhm.
let's bring in a third party.
Okay, okay. Now, is this something that, I know you said part of your majority of your sight is deteriorating. What percentage when you first became blind, and what percentage? I know that sometimes they will rank it, were you completely blind, or is it times you could see different things? And like I said, I know you said it's gone down to you not being
Well,
able to see.
mine is a little bit more because when I started losing it, I legitimately got tunnel vision. It was like
Mm,
looking through two telescopes. So the number we think of, that's usually with acuity, right? That's
mhm.
usually with your clarity of
Yeah,
vision. Well, if
yeah,
you have that, but it's just less, the numbers really mean less. But I could still see when I was like I could still read when I was told I was legally blind, but I which confused the heck out of me, first off. And that's when I learned that you could still see and be considered blind.
yeah.
Um that that was a huge misconception I had just right off the bat. Was I was like, but I can still see and you're telling me
Yeah.
I'm blind. I think your math's wrong here. And my doctor was like, my ophthalmologist was like, okay, look at my nose. I was like, okay. He's like, now do you see any of this? I was like, no. And he was like, okay, now I give you permission to look around. I was like, okay. And he's like, okay, do you see this now? And he was going just like this right above his eyebrows with his hands flicking, and then right under his chin flicking with his fingers. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, okay.
I'm
So
blind then. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, because I, like you, I thought when you were blind, you just couldn't see anything. I never
mhm,
thought it was different degrees of blindness.
yep.
I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a spectrum, like autism, like a lot of
Yeah.
things in life. It's a spectrum.
And that's what we're learning. That's what we're learning. I think with everything. I think we had someone on here with cerebral palsy, and we were like, just because somebody's diagnosed with cerebral palsy or spinal bifida, it does not mean that they cannot walk. There are different, like you say, there are different degrees of everything. There is a spectrum for everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. So, what was your activity during the pageant?
My
I
act.
know they have to have what is it? The
Oh, talents.
yes, the talent.
So mine was a her story, and I wanted to talk about the difference between the medical construct of disability versus the social construct of disability.
Okay.
So I wrote it and did it all myself. I was really proud because I was like, look, there's 18 of us girls. There's going to be one winner, as they say, but I wanted every single person to get away something from me competing. It's
Okay.
not just about, oh, how great am I? It's let me put how we think of disability as a society, and then how most disabled people and their loved ones view disability.
Mm-hmm. And I like that, because I think when we hear disability, some people just automatically have like, or they feel remorseful, or they feel so much compassion. And I get that. But I think it's a different day and time where when we hear disability, we don't limit the individual. And I think that's the difference this day and time. And I think the reason why is because of advocates like you. Ailee, you just it's you don't roll over and just say, I'm just going to ride this out laying around crying about it. You
Mhm.
get up and you use it. You use that and make that your platform. And I think that that's a great thing. So I think it's a totally different ball game now. And I think that we give people hope when we show society that we're still here. We're still here.
Mhm.
We're still capable of learning. We're still capable of teaching. And we're still capable of accomplishing things.
Exactly. I've just even loved like everything, all the events I was able to do like this past July, which was, Disability Pride Month. The mayor of Frederick, Michael O'Connor, asked me to be the opening keynote speaker to the Disability Pride City Council meeting. And backstory to that, 2 days prior to that, I had just gotten out of the neuro ICU, and then showed up to for that 2 days later. They're like, we don't know if she's gonna make it. And my friend just goes, knowing Ailee, she could be discharged that morning and still show up. And I was like, well, if I never did anything, anytime I felt sick, I would never do anything.
Mm,
So I was like,
mm.
I gave myself 24 hours to rest. I was like, and now I'm back to it.
Now you're back to it. I love
But
it.
I actually met Michael O'Connor at the Disability Expo because I was volunteering there,
Okay.
and I heard he was going to be there. And my friend and we were like handing out flyers that they asked us to, and all of a sudden I hear a deep male voice, and I was like, hey, can you search what the Mayor of Frederick looks like? So my friend Googles it and looks and was like, yeah, that's him. I was like, okay, let's wait till it looks like he's about to head out, and then we then later we then like go to him, and I like just pause him basically, and I'm like, hey, as somebody that I've was born and raised in Frederick, I wanted to know what Frederick was doing in terms of accessible design, specifically when it comes to the blind, and what you guys are thinking about doing for branching out to reach those communities that is in a more is in more of the farmland of Frederick rather than the city of Frederick. How are you guys
Okay.
able to help those individuals? And he just looked at me, and at first like started with like the defensive answer. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, it's a big area, like I get that. But like once I was so like calm and easygoing, and it wasn't like an accusatory, I was like, I just want to know, like,
That's
and how
right.
I can add my voice to this to help. This is how these collaborative, conversations come about. And he goes, oh, and he left there. Apparently his publicist called me like a few days later and said the mayor said that you're like his favorite person he's ever met. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
thanks.
I love it because I don't think all the time that certain situations are set up with the mindset to restrict the disabled, but a lot of people just don't know, and that's where our voices need to be heard. I think if they're given a seat at the table and their
Mhm.
needs are being conveyed, that's a whole nother ball game. And I think, like you say, and I love the way that you approached it. It's like, some people do come across confrontational, and I do believe that not just disabled people, but just anybody,
Yeah.
they can come across confrontational, and that's the last way you're going to get something done, like that. What's that saying? You get more bees with honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a great way of approaching people and just asking, stating your need and just letting them know how it could be better. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and the thing about that I love about especially like accessible design or universal design is that it's not just good for the disabled individual because it's called
Okay.
the curb cut phenomenon. Slanted
Hmm.
sidewalk crossings are great for wheelchairs and walkers, but
Okay.
also mothers pushing babies and
I
strollers
love that.
and
It's
couples riding.
multi-purpose.
Exactly. So, thinking about the disabled person is thinking about the society as a whole, and also like automatic door openers. Great when your bags are full of groceries or if you are in a walker, wheelchair, or have a limb difference. Like there's a plethora of different reasons. It's even texting was made for the deaf. It's But you don't start having these conversations until you have them with disabled individuals. Not having
Mhm.
us, like you said, at the table, it's like then we're not going to make any progress anywhere unless
Mhm.
ourselves or caregivers are doing it ourselves. And I say caregivers because one, because of, your kid, and also my
That's
mom would
right.
gladly speak up for me
That's
too,
right.
but I'm at the age I can speak up for myself now.
Yeah, and it's good because Ali, I love the way you express yourself. You make it, first of all, you definitely are approachable. You're approachable, you're educating people. And again, I think that's what's missing a lot of times. First of all, I don't think it's that we don't want to educate, but sometimes we don't get that platform, you know. I think
Yeah.
people just assume that people want pity or something, and it's not,
No.
it's I think that's the furthest thing from what I know for myself. I'm advocating for my daughter. My daughter does have cognitive disabilities, and she is nonverbal, but at the same time, um, if I did not have my daughter, I would not understand this process. So that's why I say, just not having the people at the table and telling them their stories and telling them their needs and the things that, would be best in place for us to be able to attend things and feel a part of something. Because I don't like you when it comes to the pageant. I don't want you to think that you got to go all out and you got to redo the whole structure of everything. No, I don't want you to do that. I just want you to understand the needs. I do have needs for me to be a part of something. I love it.
Yeah. Well, the one other thing that the pageant actually did for me, which was incredibly helpful, was the theater that the Miss Maryland was hosted in. The dressing rooms are in the basement.
Okay.
Um, Now I'm blind. Going down four flights of concrete stairs
Yeah.
would not be a thing for me. Um,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is a hazard waiting between blindness and my seizures. That's a hazard waiting to
Yeah.
happen. So
Definitely.
they actually they kicked the not kicked they moved the state title holders to the basement, and they gave me that
Mm.
dressing room, which
I
I
love
felt
that.
sad that I wasn't with all the other girls, I do have to say, because they put me by myself.
Okay.
um but you know what, I
But I
got to
love the
participate.
accommodations. I love the
Yes,
accommodations. And it
me too.
wasn't just that. I
All
love the fact
accommodations.
that the people that were in the pageant, they didn't make a big deal about it, or because some people may feel like, who am I to be demoted? So I think
Oh,
all of that was great. That's compassion. I think
mm.
that's compassion, and that's accommodations. I think that's great. I think,
Yeah,
again,
no.
it's you set the pace. You set the
Mhm.
pace for others to feel like that they could be a part of that. And what is it? You set precedence.
Yes.
Yes, you set precedence. Wonderful.
And plus, like even my interview outfit. So I had like a bright pink, like neon pink suit, and at first I accidentally ordered pants that were too small, but the company let me keep it and they sent me the right size. Well, I
Okay.
shredded those pants up, and I put them around a white tipped cane, so my cane was the
Oh,
same color as my outfit.
oh man, how nice,
And then
man.
for stage, I also got a bedazzled white tipped cane. But I mean, come on, you got to.
That is, man. I'm gonna say this. Just alone, I like your go get 'em personality. I love it. I
Go big
love
or
it.
go home, man.
That's right. If you ain't come to win, go home. Wow. So
Mm.
what was your interactions with the other candidates like? Tell us that.
Honestly, everyone was so great, and also really enjoyed, like, all of the girls were like ready to help me, like just let me know and I'm over there. Some of the girls I already knew from the two locals I had competed in, that I
Mhm.
already knew them, or from local events, seeing them at events as well. So thankfully quite a few of them, and one of the teens and we she has a car, I have love, I guess. We like when we would go to our local library and practice like twice a week our walks,
Okay.
because the library near us has like private rooms, and that's what we would use to practice our walks.
Okay. Okay.
But and now her and I just hang out weekly just because we can.
That's
um
wonderful. That's
But
wonderful.
thankfully, the big thing that s- I hated was that the finals night of Miss Maryland, I had a seizure and I had to get
Mhm.
airlifted
Okay.
to Hopkins. But I did win Miss Congeniality and I did win Best Overall Talent,
I'm not
non-finalist
surprised.
talent. So
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
everybody that knows me, when I'm like, yeah, I won Miss Congeniality, they were like, duh. I
Yeah,
was
I'm
like,
not
well,
surprised.
thanks.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, and
What
every
type?
pageant I've done, I've won Miss Congeniality.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. You leave your mark wherever you go, I can
Try
tell.
me, huh? What? Met a stranger who? Yeah.
Now, tell me, what type of seizures do you have?
I have grand mal seizures,
Okay,
so
okay,
that's why I call them my mini dance parties because it's just a lot of shaking.
okay, okay. Yeah, a lot of shaking going on.
Yeah.
Do you have them as often, or are you as you get like my daughter? She has seizures, and as she's getting older, I find that they have slowed down tremendously. A lot of times, she has them once. She has an infection in her body, and I kind of, I know this may sound strange. I don't want her to have seizures, but if she did not have the seizures, I wouldn't know there's an infection in her body until it
Yeah.
became deadly. So that's kind of like that's her voice saying, I'm not feeling up to par. And whenever she has it, I know there's something going on.
Yeah, is um they're happening less often, especially now that I have the shunt.
Hmm.
However, the shunt's tricky though because
Yeah.
it's set at a setting. So it's not like the shunt is like, oh, okay, now that you'd have less fluid in your brain, I'm gonna dial it back to where I
Hmm.
drain less. No, it's still open so I can get low pressure really
Yes.
easy, or the opposite can happen that I can have too much fluid. So it's
Hmm.
not a perfect system.
How many times has your shunt have to be repaired? Because I know that one time when they were talking about when I first heard about a shunt, I know the thing that I cringed at is the number of times that they would have to repair the shunt. Because for those that don't know, the shunt is almost like a device put in so that it can help. And Ali, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can help um, make sure that the fluid does not increase like beyond what you're supposed to have in your brain.
Yes.
So if the shunt breaks, they go in and they only fix what's broken.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, but it actually you have to get it like changed only really as a kid, and as you're growing into it. You usually
Okay.
need to get several, but once you're full grown, unless something happens with it, I don't have to get mine replaced.
Well, that's a great thing. And I think that's one thing her neurologist did tell me is if she had to get it as an adult, it would not be as bad because when you're getting it as a kid, you got to think you're constantly growing. And as you're growing, your brain is taking on different. Yeah, so it is a lot different. He told me it's a lot different as she gets older if she had to get one.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that, can be somewhat of a downfall with a shunt, but like you say, it's you gotta take the good with the bad.
Exactly. Everything's a catch 22. You just have to decide
Everything.
on if you think the risk outweighs, you
Yeah.
know, if the risk is worth the positives you're going to get out of, and staying realistic in those expectations.
Okay. So, what is your plan moving forward? Is that I know that, some people get a dog and you seem like a dog type. I can see you put that shredded pink outfit on the dog and I what are your plans as far as braille and all of this? Tell me that.
So the reason I'm giggling is in my mind, I just went, I know I didn't send you my interview fact sheet from Miss Maryland because on there it's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what, name three things? And one of them was getting a guide dog. That was on my
Oh,
list.
okay.
Um, and then do you want to hear the question that the judge dared ask me and follow up to that?
Okay.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that, but that, but
Is
that
it
I
is it
was,
nice?
yeah, it's nice, but it kind of just made me go, huh? Was he was like, don't you think it it, it does opposite what the guide dog school would probably want since you're so independent and you can do things on your own that why would you need a guide dog? Don't you think that would be counterintuitive? And I just had to stare at him, but I was like, "Don't squint your eyes like you want to. Don't squint your eyes. They can see, you can't." Because I just was like, "What?" And I actually replayed my interview tape, and I still love the response I gave because the response I gave was, "My independence does not take away my disability."
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah,
It's
it's
still there.
it's
I
still
mean,
there.
yeah, and it's just like a 504 in school or with, certain jobs. I just need some accommodation. So I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, it doesn't, my disability is going to still be there, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to slow down.
Yeah. And I'm like, if
Mm.
I don't use my white tipped cane, like I can't really get around unless I have a guide human. So like I still need help.
Yeah,
um
exactly. Exactly. But you're
but
not letting that stop you.
no, but I'm am considering getting a guide dog. It's a lot of work though. You gotta be able to,
Mm.
walk a minimum of a mile a day. You have to have 3 routes that you do on a weekly basis.
Okay.
And then once you pass all the checks, health screening, mental health screening. I mean, there ophthalmology. Once you get past that stage, then someone from the school comes out to you and watches you walk in person to see how your gait is, how tall you are, all of that.
Mhm.
And then it takes about another year to get matched with a dog. So we're talking
Oh,
basically like
wow.
a 2 year, like in total from start to finish.
Okay. But it's funny because it's a process, but that process will move quickly. I mean, I can see you with your dog. I really can. I can honestly see you. I'm surprised you don't have a dog already.
I have a
Not
seizure
not
alert dog, but she's a chihuahua, so she's
okay.
not a guide dog.
Yeah, because one thing that they continue to talk to me about when my daughter was young is having a dog that would pick up when she's having a seizure.
Mhm.
Um, and I was again, I was a single parent and had my son, and I was just like, listen, I don't need any other responsibility. I just
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. Because like you say, that's a responsibility as well, because even though it's a dog that is, dealing with, help notifying you that, hey, your child is having a seizure, that dog still has to eat. That dog still has to go to the vet. That dog still needs to be walked. And it's a lot that comes along with that. It is.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that as a single parent.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was being pulled from left to right as it was. So I call it selfish, but I wasn't adding anybody else onto my agenda, my daily agenda. No, I couldn't do it. Yeah.
But something I wanted to mention though, like with pageants, you have to have a community service initiative or like an
Oh,
initiative that, and so you know what I called mine, and I'm really proud of it. This is what your co-host and I, like, she went oohing and ahhing when I told her my name, because when I saw your guys' name at the Disability Expo, I was like, they're my people, because mine is called Insightful.
I love
For
that. I love
because
it.
I'm all about educating people on sight and the lack of sight, and it's like it's sightful. um,
I love
so
that. I
so
love it.
I mean, even now, like I've been going into schools and educating kids on blindness. Like I have a whole PowerPoint on it.
Great.
And also allowing them to ask their questions, because that's a very important way how we learn.
Yeah.
And there are future, architects, software developers. They are the hopefully the future to how we can hopefully see more, since by 2050 it's predicted that there's 23.7 million blind Americans right now. That number is projected to double by 2050. So,
Mm.
based off of the prevalence of disease and the aging of population, between the two, people not knowing what puts their vision at risk, and it's like if there's anything we can do to even prevent a small portion of this, I
Yeah.
want to do what I can to do so, because
Yeah.
there was nothing I could have done to prevent mine, but others cannot say the same.
Yes. Well, I love the fact that you're doing that because that was one of my questions. Like, I know you are doing the advocating, where you doing it. So that is good because I think, and I said this before, I have a great nephew and he's going on 3. And when he sees Morgan, because Morgan wears her disability, when he sees her, he gets afraid and scared. So my goal is to have him interact with Morgan as much as possible because I think that if we educate our young people, then as they're getting older, they will not become, to the place where they are afraid or they're
Yeah.
totally desensitized as it pertains to disability.
Well, not only that, but one thing that has always upset me is I'd be like in a grocery store, right, with my cane, usually with my mom, and you just hear a kid go, "Mom, what's that?" And the kid goes, "Shh, my shh,"
I know.
and like ushering. And I learned, like over a year ago, I just started stopping and being like, "No, what's your question? Like, it's
Yes,
okay. Like, if
I do
they
the
ask,
same
I
thing.
don't mind." It's like because people are always just afraid of saying the wrong thing. It's like
Exactly.
no, it's like anything can be insultive if you're meaning it to be insulting. Because you don't know what is and isn't, I'm not gonna crucify you for it.
That's
This
right.
is how we learn. And that's how we should learn, is with forgiveness. Um
Exactly.
so it's like as long as we all come from that basis, I think we're good. But I totally, to your point of, so you don't have to be afraid of this, because the disability minority is the only minority that anyone can enter at any phase in life. It doesn't have to be affecting you right now or
Yeah.
anyone you know, but it could be you or a loved one in the future. So you shouldn't wait for it to affect you for you to care about it. So
But
even having that empathy at a young age is so important.
I love your approach with it because I do the same thing with my daughter. When we go out and I find that there are kids that stare at her and they ask questions and the moms say no, don't do it. I let them ask their questions. I even went to a kindergarten class and my daughter was in school and I went to talk to them. But I've been on both sides. I've been on the side with the people afraid to ask the questions because they thought I would be offended. And I've been on the side where my neurotypical son was doing the same thing. And I took
Yes.
that like, don't do that. Don't stare. Because we were told when we were growing up, don't stare. So I've been on both sides and I understand both sides because
Mm.
I do feel like there were times when I went out with my daughter that sometimes I went to the store and I just wanted to go to the store to get some milk, some eggs, and it was quick, fast and I didn't want to have a teaching session. I did. I was not
You
in
don't
the
have to
place that
advocate for every moment of every day. Sometimes you
yeah,
just want to be.
exactly. So I understand I was on both ends. So I understand where they're coming from. I don't think that they mean to be rude. I think for me, I was always taught you don't stare. And that's what I told my son. But I love the flip side that I gave people the opportunity to ask their questions. And and I would tell the parents, I was like, I'm not offended. I'm not. Let them ask their questions because if they don't ask at a young age, we're going to have ignorant adults.
Yep.
Yeah. So I totally understand that as well. My question, and I think we kind of went away from it, was how are you reading? Are you using Braille or are you we have so much technology now.
We
How are
do.
you? Yeah.
So I, with my computer, I learned how to use Fusion, which if you've heard of, um, Zoom Text or JAWS, Zoom Text, Fusion is a mixture of both of them. So my computer talks to me when
Okay.
I'm on it and move around it, and I get around it using hotkeys, not
Okay.
with the mouse.
Okay.
Um, and I just recently bought an iPhone because Android sucks when it comes to accessibility features. I do have to say that. Apple is actually where it's at for accessibility features, and I was having a harder time using my Android, so I was like, I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and pay for the pricing that I don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's very expensive.
yeah, so I got it because I just could no longer really use my phone. But I don't know Braille still. That's a little bit more difficult to learn. I've tried, but
Mhm.
usually when you are first learning, they have to like sandpaper down your fingers like
What?
repeatedly. Yeah, and I'm not because you have to be hypersensitive to everything. So, and
Oh,
I have nerve pain. Okay, I have really bad nerve pain. I don't think I could go through that multiple times.
okay.
Um,
I never knew that.
so
Wow.
yeah.
But it makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, I mean that's if they don't teach you young, because usually when you're young, you can pick up on things like that when you're a baby. I'm no longer a baby.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mom I said that, but I am no longer a
You will
baby.
always be her baby. You will always. Well, it's funny because you never think about these types of things, and I think it's a little different once you are thrust into something. I think it's a lot different when you're young compared to when you're thrust into something as an adult because it's kind of like growing up all over again,
Yeah.
understanding how you have to, go through things. And it's not to say it can't be done, but it can be a little more difficult. But it's with
No, it's like
you,
I
Ollie.
currently dog walk and pet sit even with my blindness, and I have people all the time that go, how do you dog walk? I'm like, well, I know it's 54 steps down my driveway, and then if I turn left, it's 109, 120 steps depending on my footing, and then if I feel around the curbside, it's like you just learn.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
learn. It's not rocket science. It's really not.
But some of us, it would be. I just love your zeal. I do. I love your zeal. I think, again, change is part of life. And the older we get, I know I just turned, but the older I get, I realize that change is a part of life. And,
Mhm.
even with my daughter, raising my daughter, the daughter that my daughter will be 21 next Saturday. The baby that I had, that's always my baby. But when she was 5, she's totally different from 20. So it's a forever changing thing. And you gotta be able to ride the waves. When I was younger, when they said that, I didn't really understand that as much as possible, as much as I do now. But this
Mhm.
is life. What you gonna do? Roll over and play dead? What can you do?
Exactly. Sometimes I wish I could.
It
Sometimes I
will.
wish I could.
Yeah, I mean, and like you say, I mean, I think for me, I have had my pity party days and I get them, but I don't stay there. And that's what my pastor always says. He was like, listen, have your moment and
Mhm.
then get up, because the longer you stay there, the harder it's going to be to get up. So it's just, this is just life. But I love the fact that you're advocating, you're educating, you are living your life. You are living your life, and you are definitely somebody that I'm glad we had on the show, because again, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You're teaching the world what it's like to lose your vision but still live. You are definitely uh, you're somebody that a lot of people can learn from, and you don't have to have a disability, because I
No.
think, again, when people, we're so keen on thinking that this life is perfect, and when we don't get that right job, or we don't get that right hairdo, or we don't get the right clothes, we just fall apart. But life is so much bigger than that.
It, yeah, it sure is.
And that's where I think, Ali, I think you're really teaching us that. And again, advocacy is a platform to educate society, but it's also a place for us to shine. It's a place for us to shine and show that we have not dug ourselves into a hole, but we are standing out here with everybody else. We're a functionable part of society,
Mhm.
and all we want is to be given a chance.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point of, the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, and things
Mhm.
along those lines. It's, the crazy that was only 35 years ago, but sometimes it's like, yeah, I can believe that was only 35 years ago. It
Yeah,
goes both
yeah.
ways. But it's like, wow, I'm so grateful we've come such a long way. We still have a long way to go. And
Mhm.
that just because we've come a long way does not mean that there's not a lot of work to do.
I agree. I agree, but that's where we coming to the table and expressing these ideas and telling the needs, it's helping our future society because I remember, again, when I was going to school, the accommodations and all the things that are put in place now, they were nowhere to be found. Most
No.
people with disabilities were um they were they were not around us. They were hidden from us.
Yep.
So
Even
yeah, so this is
largely,
real.
yeah, even largely, I still feel that disabled individuals are segregated from most of the population. I mean, there's different schools for them, different classrooms. To a
Hmm.
certain point, I understand it because usually we need a little bit more help, but then I feel like then we're all put, when adulthood comes, all in one big classroom basically, which is the real world, and then expected to know how to interact with one another.
Yeah.
When I feel like in schools they should have tried a little bit harder.
Yeah, I agree. And I do know that my daughter goes to a private special needs school, but it's because of the needs that she
Mhm.
had that the school could not accommodate. But when it comes to our family functions, when it comes to everything, Morgan is pulled out at our church, everything, she's pulled out in front of everybody. So there is no such thing as, okay, we're going to keep her home. Because back in the day, and I'm talking about way back, like in the 20s and the 30s, most special needs individuals were hidden in the homes.
Mhm.
They were not brought out in society because it was almost a
It was
sign of
not safe.
shame. It was a sign of shame upon the family. So we've come a long way. Well, Ali, I love having you on a show. I truly appreciate, and I know Bunny wanted to be on here, but she is totally under the weather. I mean, we have it where people sign up for the shows, and she jumped on this because I remember when we were in Frederick at an expo, I
Mhm.
didn't get a chance to talk to you. She was talking to you, and she was so impressed by your story. And so, I just want to encourage you, keep setting precedents, keep educating, keep, holding your head high because you are doing an awesome job. And
Yeah.
listen, I will not be surprised if I see you on a billboard doing something else. Again, I applaud that. I applaud that because you're definitely, and one of our people had on here that you're an inspiration, and I really believe that you are. And I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on advocacy to tell us about your story. And I just encourage you to keep living, keep living. And with that being said, I want you to give us some words of encouragement to those that may be just embarking on, being diagnosed with something. Give them some words of inspiration and then tell us what your plans are in the future.
Well, I would say that your disability does not need to define you. What you do in spite of it is what defines you, not with what makes you. And coming up later this month, I will be speaking at a STEM conference about how disability belongs in STEM education.
Hmm.
And what else do I have? And then I have a lot of organizers set up for October, since it's Blindness Awareness Month, for the um, uh, uh, American Foundation for the Blind, raising money for them. So I'm really excited for all of that.
Okay.
I'm always go go go.
Okay. Okay. And with that being said, I definitely would like for those that want to attend, are these some things that people can attend?
Yeah, the STEM conference. I believe, I think sign up is needed ahead of time, but people can attend the STEM conference.
Okay. Okay. Well, I thank you again, Ali, for joining us. I want to just remind everybody, for those that are seeing. I did have an event coming up. It's our first annual advocacy walk. We are so excited. It's a 3 mile walk and it's in Henson Creek in Oxon Hill. So for those that and I'm giving you more than enough time to get those tennis shoes, get you a new pair of sneakers and get out there and walk with us. We're walking to raise money to help our parents with IEPs and help people to be able to review these IEPs and help parents to understand them. So please, for November the 8th, guys, if you're in the Maryland area, sign up, come out and join us. We're going to have a whole afternoon of fun planned for us. So again, thank you guys. Thank you, Allie, for joining us. Stay encouraged. And we will see all of our listeners back next week. Thank you, Allie. Have a good evening.
You too.